housing market. I'm Kyle.morris with Morris Property Group and FC Tucker.
Hi guys, I'm Shelly Walters with FC Tucker and the Shelly Walters Realty Group.
I'll just apologize in advance. I'm borderline delirious from lack of sleep, and I'm tired and on energy drinks, and so they're making fun of me currently. So I will try to keep everything above board. So I think one of the things we wanted to talk about this week, interestingly enough, is so both me, Raquel, Shelly, I've actually had people hit me up in the past week about when's the crash coming?
The crash is coming.
When is the crash coming?
What is that cartoon about the crash? There's like things crash. I don't know. There's a cartoon about crashing.
And I'm the person delirious today. Oh my gosh.
The sky is falling. The sky is falling. Who is that? Peppy with you? I don't know.
Man, we're going back old. Like I don't
Wild,
remember.
sorry.
I don't remember a ton of the cartoons from when I was a kid. Because of my children. I'm like,
oh yeah.
You got Paw Patrol, and all these other ones.
Well, the point is we've ran numbers to really try and see if we're heading towards a crash. Can it happen? What are we seeing? So, very interesting.
I think
numbers.
Like when the conversation I had last week, it really wasn't about the crash. When you actually like dove into the conversation, it was, I just can't afford it right now. That was the actual conversation. It was like, hey, when is it going to be affordable for me again?
The thing is, we're waiting for the crash, so then we will buy. Everybody thinks there's a crash coming, so we'll just everybody's sitting back and waiting for so many weird reasons. Interest rates for sure.
Yeah.
But now we're really starting to see buyers say we're waiting for the crash and then we'll buy.
Right. Which if you're a seller, that's just a horrible position to be in, right? Because it's going to hit you on both ends, right? But I just don't see anything that suggests that, right? When we look at the data, and I get where people are coming from because they want to make a move, and things have just gotten expensive. We've been historically low in Indiana, and we've started to kind of catch up with the rest of the nation as far as what our housing market, as far as the affordability costs, But at the same time, a lot of it comes into play with your debt to income, inflation in general, the cost of goods, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when you look at the data, it actually trends towards the opposite of this, quite honestly.
I keep saying, I don't know how it can happen.
Yeah.
So, if we look at these stats, we pulled all of this. We did a 2009 versus September 1st through today's date, 11/14. In 2009, 2015, then 2020, and then today. So, if we're looking at 2009, and we looked at all of my board, so 16 donut counties. So all the stats coming from my board of the sales in 2009, the same September 1st to 11/14, 6,500 houses sold.
Right. And that's where this stemmed from. Is I read an article this morning that said, outside of the conversations that I had last week and all of us, that said that home sales are the lowest they've been since 08, 09, right? So we actually want to dive into the stats to figure out the comparison, so to speak.
And it does show that.
It does show that. It does.
Of
units actually sold, yes.
Right. So in 2009, same week or same couple of months, 6,500 in 2009 and 6,900 in 2023. So we're a difference of about 350 to 400 if we get exact numbers. So it's 350 difference between 2009 and 2023. We're up, but we are back to. But what causes those inventory issues or the issue of non-sales?
It's totally different now versus then, right?
Today's inventory.
Yep.
And interest rates. In 2009, it was, foreclosures, bank issues, and all that kind of stuff. So.
And it was also inventory then, so to speak, because there was so much on the market, and you didn't have as many buyers.
Right.
Right.
Right, and many of them were in foreclosure, so they were more distressed in types of properties. But if we start looking at the numbers, so 2009, 6,500, 2015, 7,500, 2020, 10,500, and then in 2023, 6,900. So we've gone down 4,000 in the past 3 years. So what we're trying to see is, what do you guys mean by crash? Like what crash what? So inventory is down, so sales are down. That's not a crash because we haven't sold as many.
It's a supply and demand problem, right? So currently we have a supply problem, but we actually don't really have a demand problem, right? But in 2009, we didn't really have a supply problem, but we had a demand problem because nobody was looking to buy because of, everything that was going on within
Right.
the global economic situation. So, but when you look into it, when you talk about crash, I think a lot of people talk more about the housing prices, right? And so we ran those numbers even, right?
Yep.
So go through those numbers.
So 2009, we saw that the average price, again, all donut counties. So that's 16 donut counties around Indianapolis, and that is all of Mybor. The average price of a sale was 132,600. Again, that's all of Mybor. That's 2009. In 2015, the average price went up to 175,000. In 2020, the average price went up to 264,000. And in 2023, it went up to $325,000. So since 2009, there's a difference of 132,600 to 325,000 average sale price. It's a 150% increase in pricing.
Which is insane. So when then it goes back into like, do I buy now? Do I not buy now? I mean, I wish I would have bought in '09. Right. For me personally, I bought in August of '08, which was literally like 2, 3 months right before the housing crash, right? And then we built our current house in 2015. 2014, I think, is when we started the build process for it. And we came out slightly ahead in 2014 from where we were at in 2008, right? But today, that house that I sold in 2014 is worth double. I know it's worth double. I think I sold it for like 189, and I think it's worth like 350, something like that nowadays.
And that's what these numbers are showing. So again, what do you guys mean when you ask if there's a crash coming? The price to crash, if we're going to say that, to lose, I don't even know how the prices could crash.
I don't. We'd
How
have.
high they've gone up, and they are still going up because they're showing 2023 we're up like 9%. The last 2 years before that was 20% and 20%. So I we need to understand from everybody who's saying, is it getting ready to have a crash? What do you mean? So prices are showing be very difficult for the prices to crash. And then we're looking at an average days on market to see where we are, just like sales. So is it crashing because houses just don't sell right now? They're hard to sell. Days on market are going up.
Oh, everybody thinks it's another world because of days on market.
Yeah.
And we're the lowest.
Yeah. So 2009, it was a 93 average. 2015, it was 72 average. 2020, it's actually showing a 60-day average.
Which that was surprising to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The 2023, 24.
But I think
days on market are going so down. They've gone back up a little bit relative to everything else, but relative to looking at, everybody always compares to 2008, 2009 to today.
Yeah.
Are we going to go back there?
I think 2020 is so high because as I remember back, there were so many houses on the market because everybody was in a good liquidity or equity situation, and so there were a lot of people listing their homes. Obviously, I mean, it's almost 40% higher of the actual volume that was sold
Yes,
that year.
they sold 10,000 that year compared to 69 three years later.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just looking at.
And that's in a quarter, right? Basically,
Right.
I mean, that's from September to
Right.
to November. That's not like for the whole year.
Yeah, that wasn't a whole year.
Right.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a good point. So we're looking at all these stats, and we just really we always say, like and subscribe and everything, but go over to the channel and on YouTube or anything, you can put in your questions and stuff. Please explain to us what you mean by, are we going towards a crash? Is it not being able to sell your house on a timely manner? Is it amount of houses that are selling? Is it a price crash? There's so many stats, but all of these are showing. The only thing that's come back down to the level of 2008 and 2009 is the amount of sales that have happened, just the amount of houses. But we can't sell anymore if we don't have any more, because we don't have the inventory to make that number go up.
I think where it stems from is like it gets lumped in with the housing market. I think the bigger problem is, as we were talking about, is like credit card debt is at the highest it's ever been, right? And so living expenses in general are high. And so the fear is, because of credit card debt and all these other things, people will start to default on their mortgage, which is a possibility. But
because people are taking the home equity to pay off their credit card.
Exactly. And I think like that's not a housing market problem. Could it trickle into the housing market? Absolutely. But even if we go up in foreclosures, it's still not going to be disproportionate as before, just because of the Dodd-Frank Act, which, I mean, it's harder to get a loan now than it's ever been,
Right.
so it's very, very difficult to get a loan. So if you're getting one, you're approved. And it comes back more into spending habits. And if you're approved for 180 or 350, like don't go buy the 350 house, go buy the 315, 320 house. Like don't max it out. Like I try to not let anybody max it out because I'm going to put them in a bad situation potentially. And I think that goes back into like kind of like our society spending habits. And I don't even want to tackle all of that, so to speak, because that's personal to each individual person. But I think what we've done is we've taken a bunch of non-connected things and interconnected them into this fear of where we're at with the housing market that just does, I mean, we're just in a flat out supply and demand problem.
Right.
And it is getting worse. That's the part that nobody seems to understand, where they're like, oh, the housing market, it's down, blah, 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 when it really isn't. It's still high.
Everything shows we're doing really, really good with what we have to work with.
Exactly. And then I just don't know, at some point with interest rates will come down. I don't care if it's in 6 months, 18 months, 5 years, whatever, we still will have an inventory problem, which is going to flip this and make it even worse. And so like, I hate to say it, it's like the time to buy is yesterday, right?
Yeah, we've
Because
said that so many times. And the thing about it too is if we look at how we think things may happen, if we have that interest rate drop, March, April, May,
oh gosh, it'll be
then the
bad.
sellers who are at 3% will be ready to sell more, and the buyers will come back into the market. We're back to a supply and demand issue where buyers are so many more out there than they are today.
Yeah.
So today is the day to buy if you're a buyer because the competition is coming.
Well, the prices have gone down, right? And so a little bit, I think we're at 98% list
Yeah,
to sale ratio.
97 to 80, 98%, yeah.
But that's still higher than you were in the spring. And so people are like, oh, it's starting to come down. Well, like historically, it always comes down a little bit right now because you have more motivated sellers, right? And the buyers who buy right now tend to take advantage of that, right? If they're working with a established agent, and they're going to try to get concessions and all these other things, which is totally fine, and it is what it is.
And we've
But they're
talked about,
making it something it isn't.
but we're talking about also what we're seeing with agents who are not giving or setting expectations correctly with their sellers and thinking that since they didn't sell in the first 4 to 5 days, they're starting to do price drops. So the fear in the market right now today is that 24 days on market, which we look back is really good.
Oh my gosh.
Like
Yes.
really good. It used to be 93 in 2009, 72 in 15, 60 in 2020. It's 24. Don't freak out. You didn't sell in the first 10 days and start lowering your price. That's where, or also sellers that have the mindset of like, oh my God, I finally got an offer. I'll just take whatever. Buyers are taking advantage of that, like
Yep.
you said. And that's where the 97% list to sale ratio is happening, is because people are afraid of this 24 days on market because it used to be 5 and 6. Well, that was a weird, that wasn't normal, not normal at all. Right now, we have a great days on market, and sellers need to sit back and just wait for that days on market to really truly happen and not freak out at
Yeah.
10 and lower the price or accept a very low ball offer from the buyer who's saying, oh, you're still here. And we know the sellers are scared. So we don't have to worry about the crash everybody's talking about for what we're seeing. So just curious, what do you mean by it's going to crash? So if you can answer that question, maybe we can understand more of what other stats we should look at.
Yeah. I mean, the problem you're going to have is like we're going to get people who are going to bring into like global situations, right? Which at a certain point, like I just can't account for that. I mean, I cannot account for how things are going to go on a global scale. Nobody can to a certain extent, right? And so all of a sudden it just comes back into like when you dial it in, these are the facts behind everything, and then just make the appropriate decision for whatever fits you and your life scenario is what it comes down to. Because people are going to have to downsize, people will have more children and have to upsize, like people will have to relocate, like that will forever be how it works.
It's a constant cyclical thing, and gets back to what you're saying, relocation. The amount of people that come here because of all the stats out in the national news about the best place to live, Carmel, Fishers, Westfield, all of these towns that have that, people, they call and just say, I want to move to Carmel.
Yep.
I want to move to Fishers. I want to move to Westfield. I want to move to Zionsville. And you're like, how? you know, if, I just can't imagine saying, I just want to move there because it sounds like a great place to live. And people do that, not just for work, not, they look at quality of life, great schools, all this stuff.
Retirement,
And
you
then
name
show
it.
here.
Yeah.
And so our demand is not going to go down. So if we're talking about a crash, the demand for our area is huge.
Which is hard though, because we historically have been lower, and then we've built this super desirable hub, right, with Indianapolis and the surrounding suburbs. And we got what we wanted to have this lovely place to live in. And then like word got out. And we're like, wait a second, this sucks. Now everything's more expensive. And like,
Right.
that's the problem of living in a nice place. Like people will find out about it, which will drive the values up. I mean,
Right.
that's,
But we're still
it's
very
best.
low in cost of living
We
compared
are.
to so many other places. So anyway, we want to get into a little bit more of a, it just seems that more and more people are saying, I'm waiting for the crash. I'm going to buy a house when the crash happens. And we keep saying, no, yesterday was the best time to buy. Don't wait till this unknown crash that doesn't seem to be a possibility in what we're looking at today.
What it comes down to, I think, also is there was a lot of money made post crash and people who bought and then did well. And people don't like that they missed out on that, right? I mean, I was somebody who missed out on that. You know, I bought, you know, I wasn't in real estate at the time, but I bought at the height of the market, you know, like, I mean, it's just what I did.
Yeah, I remember 2007 was a whole nother issue.
Yeah, it's just going up.
Yeah, and everybody's like, I just bought in 2007. And from 2007 to 2011, they saw a very strong decline in the value of their home because of what was happening around them. But it gets back to that, it was a very weird situation that would be very hard to replicate
It would.
to
Yeah.
make things really go down. So,
And even
no,
then,
a crash is not coming. I'm just going to say that.
the
I don't
part
think-
about it too, it's like, so people look at this and they're like, oh, I want to crash. And I feel like they look at it through the lens of like, this will be beneficial for me to do something, right? But what they don't realize is how many families and parents and children were hurt during that time frame. You know, parents who like, I have a lot of friends whose parents were like financially decimated to a certain extent because of that situation. You know, families were uprooted and had to move communities and all this other stuff. And I mean, it forever kind of changed. You know, I know like in real estate, there used to be this whole conversation of kind of like millennials would wait to buy because they saw what happened to their parents, right? Well, like that's a very real thing. And you're almost wishing that
Right. Yeah. Could you imagine?
on everybody else for your benefit,
Yeah. Good point.
right? And like that just
That's
doesn't
such a-
make sense to
no.
me, right? Like I don't need my grandparent, well, I guess it'd be my parents. My grandparents are dead, but God bless their soul. But I don't want my parents looking into a reverse mortgage right now because like everything has gotten so bad or whatever. And not that reverse
And
mortgage
that
is so
was
bad,
the whole
but-
thing about the reverse mortgage back in that time period is the reverse mortgages were being used and people didn't really understand what that
They
meant.
didn't,
You were,
yeah.
they were gobbling, the banks were gobbling your equity out. And then when you went to sell, it's like,
There's no
Oh.
equity.
the equities, my bank took it back from me,
Yeah.
but you were living on it. Did you see the movie The Big Short?
Yeah, it's a very good
I mean, that
movie.
is a great movie to
It's
see.
really good.
I mean, if we would talk about what happened during that period. But I started in 2008. I didn't know any different. The thing I didn't know any different about was the way I was showing houses and what I was showing. 25% of the houses I was showing were completely decimated inside because of the sadness that was happening around them. They talked about
And people were upset.
the people were told to get out of their house in 20 minutes, and you would see that they just started dumping because they stayed as long as they could.
Because they didn't have anywhere else to go.
No. And so when a foreclosure happens, they'll stay and stay and stay and stay till somebody knocks on your door and says, get out now. You've been told to get out, but they didn't have any place to go. So for that, like you said, to wish that on people, I would see children's toys and I would get so sad in my head to think of, I know all my children have their favorite toys.
Yeah.
And I know all my children who would miss one of those toys, their doll or the, Power Ranger or whatever. But that was a horrible thing to, I didn't understand what I was seeing until I saw The Big Short. And I'm like, man, I actually went through that. So I actually got certified in short sales
Mhm.
because I wanted to help people through this process the correct way. Because there were agents that were doing short sales that didn't know what they were doing. And there was a proper way to do it and you needed to be certified, but people did it anyway. So God forbid anybody's like hoping this crash comes again.
I think it's super short-sighted of like the impact that has on society and people as a whole, solely for my gain, so I can afford something. I mean, that just makes no sense to me as a human.
But how to get back to that? If they want to say the crash that happened was a huge crash, like
Yeah.
in so many ways. For us to go back to anything that sad,
I mean,
I mean,
the
I can't
lending rules don't even support something like that happening. I mean, we literally built an entire system around preventing that from happening again. Like the crash they're talking about is like basically society being upset with the cost of inflation and just bucking back and not purchasing. That, I mean, that's all you're really talking about, because from a, I don't know, corporate, financial structure, it's just not there, if that makes sense, right?
well,
So
it doesn't look like it, and we could be eating crow in a year, but
I'm
that's a
really,
devastation that we have no idea of looking at.
yeah,
Again, 2020 couldn't have ever said anything about that happening.
that a global lockdown would increase sales. That makes
Well, yeah,
no
so
sense.
that wasn't a crash, right? So the major issue that happened in 2020 did not cause a crash. It was in complete opposite. It just made everything go crazy. So anyway,
Just a lot we want to talk
on
about
our
because,
soapbox.
yeah, we've been,
Because people keep saying it to us.
and I just don't, I think that's the broader thing is we want to dive into it. It's not factually accurate. And then on the other end of it, like, I just don't think people understand hoping for something like that, what that kind of an implication is. And I mean, people still need to be educated and all that stuff. Like, I'm not trying to say, like, just go in eyes wide shut, so to speak. Like, do your due diligence, work with an experienced agent who can walk you through all of this stuff, know what you're buying, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But like, these are people that we're talking about, and it's talking about whether I can afford a house that's slightly outside of my price range right now, that I want a lot of bad stuff to happen to other people, and that just is mind-boggling to me. So
Or hoping for that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because somebody that will also be negatively impacted by that. So, and that's assuming that, when you talk to people about this, like, that's assuming that you can afford it because your job wasn't downsized. Like, there's just so much that goes into all of it. So, but I understand the concerns. That's why we wanted to go through the stats and the math and all of that stuff. So that people knew we're not like gaslighting people here. We like literally use the stats to kind of create all of our hypotheses.
Well, because you had originally said you started talking about it because of what something was said in the media or whatever, that was a local media. But we always want to say, okay, wait a minute. We hear what the media is saying, but let us look at our individual issue here, which is our MIBOR, 16 donut counties, that we are the most interested in seeing. The national news talks about whatever's going on. We just, by hearing something in the media, we always want to go and debunk it and see if it's really true.
Yeah, and if it's there to support, like, I'll totally support it. So, but it's just not there, quite honestly. So, other stats currently for Fishers. So we had 21 go on the market, only 3 pended, and it was anywhere from like 194 to 1.8 million. But 20 pended last week. So stuff
You took away. You had 21 on the market and 20 pended. So
yeah,
completely gone.
I gained one in on my inventory, right? So there's 147 on the market. Average days on market, it was 16 for last week, just because a lot of things kind of picked up and cleared out. So the average was like 11, which is the median went down by 2 days, but the average days on market, we cleared out some of the older stuff. And then in Noblesville, we had 18 go on the market, anywhere from 146 to 2.2. 21 pended. 5 of them were within a week, right? But 21 pended. So I lost inventory last week. So there's 139 on the market. Average days on market in Noblesville is 45. The median's 24. And that has been like that for months. We'll pick up 3 and then I'll lose 4, or I'll pick up 1 and gain 2. Like, or, like, we're really staying steady state.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no influx of inventory, and whatever comes on the market is being sucked right back up in a certain day of 7 days, what we're looking at. But over the 30 days, we're seeing that as well. So,
and what's interesting in that too, by the way, real quick, on that 2-week period, 2 weeks ago rates jumped up to 8, and last week they went down into the mid 7s again, right? And so all of that happened both that huge swing within interest rates, and at the same time, that huge swing of people purchasing within a 2 week period.
Well, and what that shows is going from, high sevens to the low sevens made buyers jump.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen if it goes to 6.5?
Oh, people freak out.
Yeah.
It'd
I mean, it's,
be like Black Friday.
we
all of a
just
sudden.
keep talking about this. This is coming if it drops. And it dropped this past 2 weeks, that's a good point. A little bit,
Just a little.
and buyers like clamored real quick. It's like, I got a coupon from Kohl's real quick, let me go shopping. So Carmel, 35 hit the market, a total of 30 penned in the past 7 days, so we almost sucked up all of the inventory. 12 of those in the past 7 days. So we're not seeing a high number penned in the first 7 days, just not seeing it, because the average days on market for that 7 days was 37, median was 18. Currently active, there's 220 in Carmel, 37 are new builds, so we only have 16% are new builds in Carmel. In the past 30 days, 90 homes sold, 18 of them were new builds, so the average days on market was 35 with a median of 10, so we're just staying very steady. 99% list to sale ratio. So the days on market in the past 30 days, showing actually less than the past 7 days, but I think our days on market are going to continue to go up because it's the middle of November. So this is a cyclical thing, this is seasonal. So in Westfield, 32 hit the market and a total of 18 pended in the past 7 days, so half. In 4 of the past 7 days, they actually pended. Average days on market is 41, and the median was 41, so it evened completely out. That's strange to me, but 11 of them were new builds in the past 7 days that pended, and the new build average days on market is 49, so they're staying even with the resales. Active 246, so 120 of those are new builds, and that's 50% on the market in Westfield is a new build. And what I want to talk about after I say these stats is buying a new build right now is a really good time to do it. So sold in the past 30 days in Westfield, 124, and the average days on market was 36, but 72 of those that sold were new builds. So we just keep saying it. Westfield is so high on new builds. It's the fastest growing city in the United States, according to some different sources out there. Zionsville 6 hit the market, 8 pended in the past 7 days.
They have such low inventory anyways.
They do. So they took all the inventory that came on the market. Currently active 72, 18 are new builds, so 25% in Zionsville are new builds. And the amount sold in the past 30 days was 47, and the average days on market there is 49. So their days on market a little higher, which is really counterintuitive to the amount of inventory they have. So
tends to be a higher price point though, also.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah.
So that was the other thing interesting in Carmel was the ones that are pending, the quick days on market are above 800.
Yeah.
Like, so those are, and you had a reason.
Yeah, I think it's because when people are scared of the market, people with cash come in. And a cash buyer is going to tend to be in that higher price point, and so they're going to buy.
Or they don't care about the rate as much.
They don't care about the rate, right? It's not going to impact them. And so it's interesting, we talk about those things, and when you see people with money doing things, like they're clearly not scared of the market, right? And those people who are super liquid, making financial decisions, they don't tend to be, they just tend to be educated on when to buy and when to sell. And for them to be stepping into the market right now, I think is an indicator as well.
Well, I just found it very odd that the lowest days on market were for the highest price tags.
Yeah, super counterintuitive.
But new builds were at the end of the year, and all builders want as many houses off their books as possible. So incentives are out there for interest rate price, take advantage of that. The amount of new builds that are available to purchase either spec and or not even out of the ground yet. This is the time.
I had a builder reach out to me last week, and they're offering 4.99 currently. Yep.
I've seen 3 or 4 builders start, somewhere in the 5s. But yeah, if you're a builder or a buyer that's having a really difficult time and don't like the interest rates, new builds all day long.
Yeah. Or do a 2-1 buy down, buy existing.
Nope.
You can do that also.
Sellers and agents have to understand what that means.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. So anyways, that was really kind of the gist of it this week. Was we really want to talk about this bubble topic. I think some agents want to steer clear of it. I just we jump into the data, and it's just a really easy conversation to have, quite honestly, when you have the facts behind you. outside of the unpredictable, like nobody could have predicted would have a global pandemic, right? Nobody could have also reacted to how we played out of that, right? That everything went way up, but that at the same time people were losing jobs. It was just a whole messed up situation. So obviously I can't predict the unpredictable, but at the same time, like I can go off stats and go off of trends, I guess is what I would say. So, but I don't know. Other than that, I'm Kyle Morris Property Group and FC Tucker.
And I'm Shelly Walters with FC Tucker. My phone number is 317-201-2601. You can text or call us anytime if you have any questions about what we just talked about, or put comments below. And please don't forget to join us and follow us.
Like and subscribe. Those are the words, right?
Thanks, millennials. No, you're not a millennial. What are you?
Me? I'm Gen X. Come on now. It's a whole thing. Me and my son got in an argument over like what indie is, and he didn't understand what indie is. It's alternative. It's a whole thing. What he calls indie is technically alternative. I was like, indie is independent of a label, blah blah blah, and he was calling like, oh my gosh, he was calling like Sublime indie, and I just wanted to like shake him and like teach him life lessons.
Do you? This is way off topic, and we're trying to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Do you watch the TikTok Cruz, CRUZ?
I'm not on TikTok. I have a TikTok account. I don't use TikTok.
It is so funny because the same guy sits in 4 chairs and he switches and everything, and he talks about the work world that he's in on each generation, how they act. It's hilarious.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, you can give your phone number.
Oh yeah, 317-649-5122 if you want to find out my favorite music genre. Thanks.
See you later next time.